Well, let's talk about this even further with friend of the program, Dan Varroney with Potomac Core Association Consulting, and he joins us now. Dan, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. So the May jobs report coming out just today, 339,000 jobs added. You're hearing the words strong, bold, blowing past expectations. You heard that time and again, though the unemployment rate ticked up to 3.7%. How are these two operating in the same sphere here? What are we to make of it?
Well, first, let's make of it this way. Let's celebrate the good news. So I want to talk about the jobs numbers. Clearly, far exceed expectations at 339,000 in May, and also there were upward revisions in increases in jobs in the two prior months. So it's good news. So let's start with that. The other thing that I'll say with regard to the jobs numbers is we had a strong stock market today. Let's feel good about that. We had strong Dow Jones and S&P numbers, and that in large part is the result of the debt ceiling deal reached by the House and the Senate in the last couple of days. So those are sort of the good news on the jobs numbers. And I would describe it, Andrew, really as a tale of two cities at this point. So that's the good news in City 1 and in City 2, which is operating on a parallel basis. We still have high core PCE, right? Inflation. It's been persistent and steady at or near 4.7% since the first of the year. So when you look at strong jobs numbers that could give it could give concern to the Federal Reserve, and they could again increase interest rates by another 25 basis points. I think that's more likely than not at this point, and I think it's likely because of the persistent inflation. We all need price stability, and it's not there yet. Prices are still going up. And as long as the job market is strong and the job market is tight, you're still going to have inflation. So I'm confident that the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates by another 25 basis points.
Okay, so and to the point, though, about the 3.7% tick up in the unemployment rate, it was at historic lows last time you and I spoke when the April numbers came out. So at 3.7, Fox Business's Edward Lawrence is saying it jumped because the total number of people who are considered unemployed grew by 440,000, while the total number of people considered in the employed category declined by 310,000. So the number of people unemployed went up, the number of people employed went down, and he says this means we have a fewer total number of people working than at the beginning of the year. Does that ring recession alarm bells to you?
So when you look at it by itself, maybe not, but when you look at it against other numbers, so let's look at it this way. So you've got 400,000 people that are unattached from the workforce. That's just one part of it. But the other thing that I also look at is the labor force participation rate. It's still steady at around 62%. That is not exactly great shakes, Andrew. That number needs to be much higher. That while the jobs numbers are strong and we're still seeing some weakness, 400,000 people are unattached from the workforce now, and the labor force participation rate is still sluggish and low. When you add that in with a persistent high core PCE inflation rate, those are cause for concern. And the other thing that I'll add, Andrew, because you and I have also talked about this, is we really don't know if there's another shoe going to drop on any of the regional banks.
Okay.
So
interesting.
And then the other thing that I want to share with you is I was checking my data an hour or so before we connected, and here's what was interesting: that yes, we have inflation, but what I want you to know is that credit card debt has reached, listen closely, $1 trillion. Consumer credit card debt, $1 trillion. What that says to me is that people are having a hard time paying higher prices at the stores. So when we think about things like recession, people are having a hard time paying these high prices. Prices and inflation are persistently high. We're seeing job loss go up. You cited what Edward Lawrence said, that there were 400,000 people unattached from the workforce, and the labor force participation rate is sort of sluggish and static where it is. So those are causes for concern.
And then we do get another CPI report on those inflation readings next Tuesday. We'll definitely be speaking about that as well. Just briefly and lastly here, we're going to have President Biden speak on the debt ceiling deal at the top of the next hour. Are people in your neck of the woods, in your world, breathing a sigh of relief about a default that is narrowly, should I say, avoided?
So I would say this, that people here in this world, in the greater Washington, D.C. area, are breathing a huge sigh of relief. I think that the president and Speaker McCarthy negotiated in good faith and came up with a reasonable compromise for both sides. There's a reality here, Andrew, and the reality is as follows. Republicans only control one house of Congress, and there's a Democratic president. But at the same time, I think the president and the speaker came together and came up with a reasonable compromise. And the final thing that I'll say about this is that it's not just about the debt ceiling. I want to close on a very important point, that the administration and the Congress really need to get their arms around spending. It is way out of control. We still are spending too much money. We have too many dollars chasing too few goods. That is what's driving inflation. Both parties need to come to the table, and they need to reduce spending.
All right, and we did see a little bit of that in this debt ceiling deal.
Yes,
we'll be hearing from President Biden in about 20 minutes' time. Daniel Varroney, as always, we appreciate your insight into this, and have a good weekend.
Do the same. Thank you.